Think we might be doing okay like this. Hey, how's it going? I'm Justin from Boy vs. Ghost. I thought I'd take an opportunity to indulge, or rather self-indulge, over the discography and albums I've put out over the years. And sometime I've had friends or people I know ask me, which of your albums should I listen to if I just want to get an idea of what you're doing? I never know what to tell them because it spans a lot of different kinds of music, and I feel the strengths are kind of all over the place. And to be quite honest, I always say just listen to a couple songs from each record, even though that's really time consuming. And I understand not everyone has that kind of time. On top of that, I've always considered what I do more of a sound collage orchestrated by an artist, which I feel is more of my background than as an actual musician. Although I do play all the instruments and vocals and explore my musicality as much as I possibly can, I feel the way I construct songs is kind of more in the way I was brought up doing artwork, and that feeds into visuals that go into the lyrics and visuals that also go into the artwork, most obviously. And what isn't always so obvious maybe is what's conveyed in the message. Like in a lot of the songs, there are tiny passages within sentences or nods to things that probably aren't very obvious or clear to most people, that I thought, I buried these things and hope that of the tens of people that listen to these recordings, that someone gets it. And, it's exciting as an artist to have to make that connection. It rarely happens, but you always hope that maybe someone construes the story that you set out or intended for them to get. And not that everyone has to get it the same way, no doubt, but if the message and intent is conveyed, I think that's most important. That's one of the most important things with art. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time doing this, but I did want to kind of walk through the 7 records and the most recent one that I'm about to finish, called Waiting for Nothing to End, which is more of an EP. I do kind of feel like at a crossroad with things musically. About 10 years ago, I put a stop to Boy vs. Ghost and did some other projects, and then came back very fiery to Boy vs. Ghost. I feel like I'm at that crossroad again, so Waiting for Nothing to End will likely be the last Boy vs. Ghost recording or set of recording for a while. I'm going to put a stop to it for a little bit and focus on other art, other musical projects. I have so much other stuff I want to be doing, and I've always had this kind of like flare in the pan with Boy vs. Ghost ever since I started it back up about 10 years ago. So I've been riding that, and I feel like the spark is just kind of starting to dwindle a little bit. So I'm going to kind of quit while I'm ahead and focus on some other stuff. So I thought this would be a nice way to encapsulate the last 10 plus years, really 16 years that I've been doing Boy vs. Ghost, which I feel like, it's time to step back for a little while. So I thought maybe I'd indulge, or as I said, self-indulge, and do this. So yeah, let's walk through the albums and talk about some of the recordings and songs. For anyone who doesn't know, before I started Boy vs. Ghost, I was in a band called Bed Light for Blue Eyes, and I left that band in October of 2005. And while I was on tour with Bed Light in Tampa, Florida, van was broken into, and a couple of our belongings were stolen. I think it was 2 or 3 of our backpacks, including mine, which had a lot of irreplaceable CDs that were burned, mixes and stuff like that, and a notebook that contained the first writings of lyrics for Boy vs. Ghost, one of which was, I remember, the original lyrics to XXXY, which is on the first record. That notebook was stolen. was a couple other songs that I had written, had ideas for, jotted down. While I was on that tour, I was playing some of the shows. The other guitar player was stepping in and getting a feel for being on stage and playing the songs. So I had some downtime to start creating what I wanted to do next, which was Boy vs. Ghost. And yeah, some of those songs never made it because of that notebook being stolen, unfortunately. But when I came back from tour, I broke out an old Yamaha 4-track recorder, and I laid down, I think it was 3 songs. I remember putting them up on mp3.com, or was it Reverb Nation, and somewhere else. It's such a long time ago. I think it was December of 2005 I released 3 songs. In January of 2006, I played an acoustic set at Van Gogh's Ear in Union and debuted a couple of songs from the first record. I remember I played an Elvis Costello song. I think I played a Third Eye Blind cover, and ended with a Pink Floyd outro. It was a strange time. I was listening to a lot of classic rock, Syd Barrett, Elvis Costello, Gin Blossoms, a lot of things that were just gearing me towards singer-songwriter, forward movement, and those were the ones that were kind of helping with that. So at the time, I wrote the first record, which is called No Flies on Me, which I didn't put out for another year because I wasn't sure of it. It was strange that I was trying to experiment but get solid songs down. So like the first album has Yet Another Movie song. That's like the very first recording, and that to me felt kind of like a Gin Blossoms kind of song, although it's almost 6 minutes in length. I felt like the song structure, or at least the verse and choruses, were pretty strong. It was about the previous relationship I had had and coming home to that. Then just in chronological order, like the very next song is about a relationship at the present time. I wrote that song, All These Things in My Head. I still play that every once in a while. That's one of my favorite acoustic Boy vs. Ghost songs. XXXY was one of the original staple Boy vs. Ghost songs. There's a music video for it by Lauren Q up on Vimeo. My good friends James, Jay, and Tamara are in that one, along with some other friends. Open Air Blues was a thank you and goodbye to the members of Bedlight. I really liked that song, and I miss playing it. It just felt a little kind of like left in the shed at that point. Splinters was one of the first like real psychedelic songs I thought I wrote. On Golden Shit, I did a Splinters 2, which kind of had a similar feel. I remember recording that on an Epiphone Hummingbird that was beautiful, that I had at the time that I no longer have, and recording the stick track with drumsticks that I made from a couple tree branches in the backyard that I duct taped together and made a flam sound with those. Those I don't have anymore, but it created a really cool sound for the percussion track on that. Cloud of Smoke, Stay, and Trip Trap was a very interesting combo of songs rolled into one at the end of that album. Cloud of Smoke was something I played at a lot of shows at that time with a full band or acoustic. It was basically about addiction and somebody making a lot of promises that they can never keep and becoming a public spectacle while you are struggling to cope and deal with their addiction and while having your own head games going on. Stay was an instrumental track that I was actually inspired to write that from watching a Ryan Gosling movie called Stay, where it's kind of like a psychological thriller, and the end of that movie gave me the inspiration to kind of put that music together. It was almost like I wrote the music to go with the end of that movie, which I always thought was very profound and stuck in with me. Trip Trap was one of the first Boy vs. Ghost songs I ever wrote, which was almost like a nod to Elliott Smith. It was about this immense stress that I felt coming back from tour and trying to mold back into, or fit rather, back into a mold that I felt I never fit in with before I went on tour, which was like going back to normal life, going to finish school, and the pressures and stresses of not being able to fit that mold yet going through the motions of it anyway. There was a lot of like psychological stress and bending going on at that time, and Trip Trap was about that. Yeah, I remember the shows around this time were kind of funny. I had a mix of people playing drums and or bass with me, and it was we did some covers. I remember doing like a Radiohead, anyone can play a guitar cover. We played a couple Halloween shows, and it was very loose. There wasn't really a distinct sound yet, I think, with Boy vs. Ghost. I think it was just a lot of influences rushing forward. I had a lot of things to say, and definitely was not afraid to say them. I think this was like a really cool, bold album that to be put out. It says on Bandcamp, it says released January 2007. And I still love this record. It has some strong songs on it. And yeah, that's a good one. And then I remember taking a little bit of a break after that, still writing, but not feeling like I had a record to put together by any means, until I came up with the concept of Unrotten, which is probably standalone, I think one of the better records I put out. Bandcamp says released January 2011, which it was definitely written in the years up to that. It was probably done the year before that. I just wasn't happy with the way it was sounding. I remember spending a lot of time messing with the way it sounded, and I don't think I'm still happy with it. It sounds like it's coming through a transistor radio, which whatever. That was kind of like what I was listening to at the time, a lot of like Guided by Voices, and I wanted it to sound a certain way, but not polished. I remember talking to a lot of people saying I wanted it to sound older and have a vintage quality to it, but a lot of people were saying I was missing sparkle, and it's missing this, but whatever. A lot of it was just, I think it's just like the most raw recording, and the songs are great. The songs are unmatched on this. Leave Me Kisses was done for the first record, but didn't make it. 300 Degrees was also supposed to be on the first record, didn't make it. XXXY I redid for this record with a guitar solo and added drums. Someone Good Like You is one of the top 3, I think, Boy vs. Ghost songs. I remember using a fuzz face for that. I remember when I got a fuzz face, which is still one of my favorite guitar effects, I wrote Someone Good Like You almost immediately, and that was that's all. There's a fuzz face. There's like 2 or 3 fuzz face guitars on that song, and I remember it kind of having that Pixies Nirvana like quiet verse, loud chorus thing going on. And lyrically, it was just very me. It was very inspired by like something that was going on at the time, and me realizing, I'd been through a lot of not so great relationships and situations, and I thought I just really wanted someone who wasn't a complete asshole. Or maybe it was me talking to myself, who knows. Sex, Cake, and Whiskey, another great one. There's a song track preceding it called Wish I Had More, which was kind of like me pretending to be an old blues guy setting up the song. Sex, Cake, and Whiskey was very autobiographical about something going on at the time. It was kind of taking the situation at hand further and saying, where could I go? Where would I rather be from here? And then taking that so far to make that seem like, well, if those fantasies or wherever I wanted to be at the time came true, how much better or worse would that be? It was kind of like a Twilight Zone spin. Like, okay, so you'd rather be doing this, so put yourself in that seat, and then what are the things that could go wrong with that? Until you wind up right full circle back to where you started in the beginning, in the original scenario. Could You Imagine is a total downer of a song, but I think one of the cooler guitar lines I ever wrote for that. Could You Imagine was, I used to try to play that live. A lot of people would love to talk over it and be loud over it, so that song's not very loud. It's not a very good live song. Good listening song. Rock and Roll Is Not For Me made the record because at the time I just felt like I didn't want to try to be anything specifically anymore. I didn't want to try to be this like cool rock and roll guy. I just wanted to write honest songs, and the whole rock and roll persona was just shrouded in bullshit and kind of a facade that I didn't agree with. There's something in that song worth noting audibly, that there's overtones heard on the, my God, what was the name of that guitar? I was using a weird Sikova, a Russian Sikova, like harmony copy kind of guitar. It's very strange looking. It had Benson pickups, and that guitar had a lot of strange overtones. It was built very funny. And while I'm playing the song, which the guitar was capoed for that, you hear these almost like music box notes being played, bouncing between the left and right channels. And I always thought, where did that come from? And it was like almost like a sound from the spheres. There's like a theory about that, like, you know, like there's not just a theory, but there's like the overtones in the recording sounded like they were bouncing off something and coming back in, and most obviously they were audibly, but it sounded like overtones from another dimension or something. Mansion on Wheels, I oddly enough wrote upon learning about a Justin Bieber and just being disgusted with what people were consuming as music in those days, which was like 2010, 11. I love that song. And Mansion on Wheels was a very like Kinks kind of nod. And Welcome to the Erie Saloon, it's kind of like a Velvet Underground song. Very autobiographical. I loved the feel of that song. I always wanted to do a music video for it. I thought it would be cool, explained visually. Kind of a dreamy landscape to do with like two water creatures that are out of sync. The album ends with Worst Friend Ever, which was kind of a deep song that has a really nasty scream at the end of it. The visuals in that song are pretty cool. Kind of has like a funny cadence to it. After Unrotten, I think I played a decent amount of shows and then called it quits for a bit. I was playing with a band called Baba Yaga. I started James Brown Gang, and I was doing some other stuff. I was building guitar pedals. I was starting to do guitar repair. I thought Unrotten was quite cathartic. I didn't feel like I needed to do much more after that. And while doing other things, I realized that there were some songs that didn't make it onto the previous two albums that I really wanted to release, which I put out on Boo Forever, which was a dedication to Richard Brautigan, one of my favorite authors. It starts out with Open Casket, which was kind of like a poem that I wrote, and I remember playing that at a hookah bar, probably around the time of Unrotten. I played it only once, I think, and it had like a drum machine and a really weird story about a father explaining death to his child at a funeral. Exploding Heart was originally on guitar. I think the recording is an organ going through a big muff. And that was a song about somebody who I wanted to be with, but things did not work out. Just a Little Guy was probably going to be on Unrotten. It's kind of like a alternative country song about feeling inadequate in yourself. Inheriting the Throne Through Murder is one of my favorite Boy vs. Ghost songs. I felt like that song never really fit anywhere, so it really kind of found a home here. I think it was very current at the time. The other songs were recorded and I didn't know what to do with them. Inheriting the Throne Through Murder was brand new. It's about a Valium trip. That's really all it was. It was about nodding out on benzos and kind of fulfilling what the ego and the conscious wanted to do unconsciously in a fairy tale fantasy, and then abruptly coming back into the present. The last song is a cover of one of my Pops songs, Shapes of the Future. Amazing song. So then some years went by. I had a recording space opened up to me, moved in, brought everything I had. I was doing repairs there. I was recording new songs. I was recording other people. I was recording other projects. And I started what became known as the Sierra Nevada Sessions. That was recorded during the fall and winter of 2014, which was, I had stopped drinking early 2014. and then started drinking again September of 2014. And oddly enough, right when I started drinking again, out came the Boy vs. Ghost songs. I think it's safe to say that Ghost was booze, in my case. But the purpose of the Sierra Nevada sessions, irregardless, which it says right on Bandcamp, was drink a lot of beer and crank out a lot of pop songs on the fly. The sole purpose of the Sierra Nevada sessions was to not overthink, just put down what came out that day and fly with it. Write some lyrics, done, next song. And out of that came a lot of really good tunes. Untitled 121, which I still play to this day, almost every Boy vs. Ghost show. There's a Pink Floyd song called Lucy Leave. Manic March 5th was very much like a Guided by Voices nod. Everyone I Know Is Already Dead, an old favorite. Rough and Tuffy, which was a poem set to music. Wandering Bag was about me disappearing to California, which was my plan for a while, to move to Big Sur or around the Big Sur area, and kind of like just about where I was left at that point in my life, I felt. And then Black Hooded Master, which was about alcoholism. Let's be blunt. A lot of these songs are about alcoholism. The next record, Golden Shit, which on Spotify or any of those stupid streaming platforms is called Gold Shit, because I was not allowed to say Golden Shit because it was bearing too much semblance to the Chuck Berry record Golden Hits, which the album cover and the album title was completely lifted from and was a nod to Chuck Berry. Golden Shit is a bold record. Released January 2017. I have something with releasing albums in January. I think it's something to do with the winter blues. It pushes the music out, I think. Or just being inside more. I'm not sure. Black Eyed Porcupine was almost like a Nick Cave kind of inspired song. At this time, I was listening to a lot of darker music like Nick Cave, Current 93. A lot of heavy psychedelic music. Spaceman 3. I had just found out about around this time. A lot of garage rock. And like in world music too, and also like electronic music was starting to come into my world again. Synthesizers, tape loop, all that kind of stuff. I was getting more experimental again. I think when I was in Baba Yaga, Ralph and I were messing around with a lot of old 78 recordings and trying to spin them to speed on a 33 RPM record player. And I got into like kind of taking and modifying and modulating old recordings and tape loops and all this stuff, and a lot of that came back into this record. Puke 69 was the name is an homage to a friend of mine's her first car. The license plate was Puke 69, and the song is sounds kind of like an Earth song, if anyone knows who they are. There's one of their albums with the green car on it, Pentastar. There's a song on there that kind of has this vibe to it, and throughout the entire song, there's a real drum kit and an electronic drum kit playing at the same time in this, and underneath the entire time, Henry Miller is talking. One of my favorite authors of all time. Tigers Ate My Parents was an attempt to put into music what I felt from the book In Watermelon Sugar by Richard Brautigan. The lyrics are literally Richard Brautigan himself reading some of the text from his book forwards and backwards. And then the lyrics I wrote were just kind of like a mood swing throughout it. The guitar solo on that song, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I remember recording, or don't remember recording that guitar solo because I was blackout drunk. I recorded it in one take. The next day, went to go record the guitar solo, forgot that I already had done it, listened to it, and it sounded like somebody else playing, which happened a lot. And yeah, it's a really long guitar solo. It's like David Gilmour jerking off in his basement for like 16 bars. But it sounded alright. And it was probably through a big muff, so it fit. It's like any other guitar solo I would have recorded, probably sober. Splinters 2 was about two different scenarios in the same vein of the first Splinters. That was actually recorded on a phone. On my phone. The audio recording is from a video recording of my phone at the time. I think I wasn't prepared, or I didn't have the means to record it, and I just used the phone, and that sounded so good. The take sounded so good. I think the video me actually recording. It's on YouTube somewhere on my channel. It made it onto the record, and it just also sounded a little lo-fi, so I kept it. Lazy Monsters, there's a music video for, great music video that me and Mark Rahman and my friend Mike DiPolito edited. And Lazy Monsters is kind of about not being sure of the people you surround yourself with, and not being able to trust yourself around them or yourself. Rusted Flowers was basically a Spaceman 3 ripoff song. It is quite fun. I don't know why I needed to go on for 4 minutes and 30 seconds though, but it kind of filled some space. I think I didn't have a lot of songs ready at that point and wrote that and thought, hey, this will fit, and I always kept it. Shamsel in Distress is a weird atmospheric track about mental illness. All I Want to Do Is Sleep. I remember I bought a way huge Echo Puss, which is like a deluxe Memory Man copy Echo pedal, and plugged it in. Within the first 5 minutes of playing that pedal, I wrote All I Want to Do Is Sleep, and I said, let me put this down. I think I wrote that song in one day, or a couple hours in one day, and went right on the record. And that's been one of the better songs. We play it every show now. Scummy Days Eulogy this was an attempt to sound collage. The Sounds of the Spheres, like I was talking about earlier, there's like, an ever-present buzz, frequency, humming that kind of unifies us all together. And we can say that those are like the electrons around us, or the electron that we live in or on, or that are in us. That's that like natural hum vibration that we all are in sync with. And then there's the ever-present noise that humans make with, static and radio and the human voice and noise pollution and actual pollution, and just what the crap that humans pour into the waves. There being a struggle with that. So this was me attempting to use a synthesizer to create the sphere sound, and then it's just a bunch of AM radio interruptions of people talking about nonsense, business, stock market, consumerist bullshit. And it's just a collage of human noise versus natural noise. And I thought that would be a cool thing to do. DOTT stands for Day of the Tentacle, which is a NES video game spawned off of Maniac Mansion, which is one of my favorite video games, one of the first RPG games. And it's about a tentacle that came over with a family who was hit by a comet and radiologically turned into aliens. The tentacle went off on its own and had a brother. And this is a really funny story. And that song is about the tentacle, the video game also. That song was in B standard, which I was in tune for a little while. And that song has some like real heavy like Black Sabbath parts in the middle of it. I don't think anyone usually gets to this song on the record. I always wanted to play it live because it's one of the heaviest songs I think I've recorded. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Loose Kite Getaway was one of the first like unions of the boy and the ghost kind of like talking together and one wanting to be the other. I really like the music in this track a lot. I wanted to do it live a couple times. I don't think I have. Yeah, so that record was one of my favorites. Things took a darker turn for Cut the Head Off. The stuff I was listening to was getting darker and darker and darker, and I was drinking a lot of fucking booze and just a darker headspace in general. Paris Seen Through the Eyes of a Dead Man. I have a friend who, over the years, we've always said, who can write the sadder song or saddest song, and I think I remember telling him about this one and saying, well, what can be sadder than you trying to tell someone that you love them while they're overdosing on heroin? And that's what this song is about. The title is actually from something Peggy Bundy says in a Married with Children episode. Corpse Floating Through Outer Space was originally a James Brown Gang song that wound up on a Boyford's Ghost album. It's also in that B standard tuning. It's one of the heaviest fucking things I think I ever wrote. It's a fucking amazing song. I love it. The lyrics came from the concept that George Carlin had called Circling the Drain, if you know what I'm talking about. And Scrying Mirror Blues was, what is that song about? It's The concept of this record, Cut the Head Off, also was somebody dying, which in the first song was about somebody overdosing on heroin. Their corpse floating through outer space. Crying Mirror Blues is somebody trying to call them back. They go through hell. In the fourth song, Devil Girls from Fire Mountain. Hypnagogia is kind of like the evil soul coming back to haunt the body or the loved ones. And then the last song, When Your White Witch Sets Eyes on Me, I'll get into. Scrying Mirror Blues was the first attempt at contact from the physical world to the spiritual world. And that song kind of had a going through purgatory and entering the pure death state. It has a weird rap verse to it, and then it has yet again another blacked out guitar solo, which I remember listening to a lot of Prince at the time, so it's like another Big Muff, Dave Gilmour, Prince kind of guitar solo. Yeah, another guitar solo I don't remember recording, but it's pretty wild. Devil Girls from Fire Mountain, which is one of my favorite song titles of all time, is me playing a drum beat and fucking around with a tape machine. And the audio from that is from a movie called Devil Girls from Mars. I had to look at the poster on my wall to remember what it was. Very cool movie. One of the first like feminist sci-fi horror movies. Call of Cool's a Misfits cover. Hypnagogia is a tape loop. A bunch of tape loops going on at once with some weird backwards keyboard and sampling stuff going on, which set up the next song, which is called When Your White Witch Sets Eyes on Me. Now, anyone who knows me knows I have a big obsession with the filmmaker, avant-garde producer, Maya Deren. And she apparently was contacted by an author named James Merrill and his partner during the writing of this book called The Changing Light at Sandover, which is an epic poem. It's about 600 plus pages, almost 700 pages. And they did a Ouija board seance and contacted a lot of their friends and artists over the years. And apparently Maya Deren was one of the people they contacted. And some of the stuff she says in that book, or that they transcribed from the Ouija board sessions, some of the coolest and most inspiring and also eerie things I've ever read in my life. The lyrics to this song are from those transcriptions. Cave of Shadows. Probably the drunkest I've ever been in my entire life. Yet, wrote an album full of love, hate, disgust, and transfiguration, or at least hope for transfiguration. This was the year before the pandemic. Had I known the pandemic was coming, I would have spent less time in the basement recording this record and getting out and seeing people. But instead, I spent the entire year killing more brain cells than I think most people can achieve in their lifetime in just this year. And writing this record, which was all over the place, but it's a beautiful mess. This album has a lot of instruments going on in it. There's sitar, there's sarod, there's tape loops again, there's organ, there's mellotron. A lot of shit going on in this. This time, I think I was listening to a lot of Brian Jonestown Massacre, Spaceman 3, Rival Schools again, were always kind of a big inspiration on me. And all the songs are fucking killer, I think. I don't know. I felt like when we did the live shows for this record, there wasn't enough people on stage. I feel like I needed one or two more guitar players, an organ player, a lot more vocals, and we didn't have the time usually to get these down. I don't play a lot of these songs live. I'd like to. Had some friends jump on vocals for this. Becca, James, and Matt from Heavy Flow on percussion, vocals. Yeah, and this was getting over a breakup, kind of realizing, kind of waking up to like, a lot of the energy you're putting out not being so great, and trying to figure out where your place is and where you need to go, and kind of lamenting over how much effort you've put into love and life and how it probably needs to be turned inward, trying to focus on the positive while being quicksand swallowed by the negative. I think that was kind of like what was going on There's a song on here called Quicksand Brain. I think that's where that came from. Originally, the song We'd Make Great Friends in Rehab was not on the record. I added it in afterwards. And that song was originally called Pisces and the Leo, which was a short novella I wrote a long time ago. And eventually tried to make a song out of it. I think the novella is way better than the song. But a friend of mine, James, who mastered the record, said that he thought it was a great song. So I thought maybe pop it on after the fact. So it's on the Bandcamp release. My Magical Thing is one of my favorite songs from the record. I wanted to do a music video for early 2020, and then the pandemic hit. I wanted a lot of people to be involved in the video for it. Have yet to do that, but future plans. Oh, and Fang Gang, Mark Raman and Ralph Genova from Fang Gang are on the song called Fuck You and Your Shitty Attitude. They actually sing like 90% of the song. I'm only singing the one verse, where you can obviously probably tell it's me. The rest is Ralph and Mark singing, which I don't think a lot of people know. 3 people singing that song. And then lastly, Return Trip to the Moon, which has become, I think, my favorite album. A lot of my friends said they really enjoyed listening to this record. I hope a lot of people enjoyed it because I had a awesome time making it. This was I stopped drinking and then started working on this record, which Weekend Knees and Drain Your Brains, I think a little bit, were written during Cave of Shadows, or right around Cave of Shadows, and I decided, well, that's, the start of the next record. And Drain Your Brains is just a weird psychedelic E minor guitar riff that has a major return at the end of it. It kind of bends the brain a little bit. Originally there was a drum machine going throughout the entire track, and I added the drums afterwards, which they're kind of busy drums, but I think I kind of nailed it down and like the way it came out. That song's a lot of fun. There's a lot of 12-string guitar all over this album and the previous one. Weekend Knees was originally called Creature Like You. It's a very like guided by voices kind of sound song, with a little 3/4 hook at the end of each line. Matcha D2 is a music video for that my friend Creepy Kelly shot. Yeah, Matcha D2 is a funny song because it's actually like the epitome of a sound collage. It starts out with the bass line to Under My Thumb by the Rolling Stones, and then it sounds like George Harrison put an alternate Beatles 12-string over the song Under My Thumb, and then the lead melody on the 12-string of the verses is the melody to Jesus Doesn't Want Me for a Sunbeam by the Vaselines, and then whatever the hell I'm singing is something else. So it's like 3 songs being played over each other, creating another song. Perfect sound collage example right there. Dead End. I was listening to a lot of Stooges. I was doing my best Iggy Pop impression, or Iggy Pop on Quaalude's impression, because I don't have his energy nor his brain. The last 2 songs are nods to 2 people who passed away during the recording of this record. Return Trip to the Moon was a poem I wrote for a friend of mine named Nicole, who passed in November of 2020, who I love dearly. And this was a little nod to her and the sweetness that she kind of brought into my life, and a little bit of like a, don't go without me kind of feeling thing, which was like I felt internally like my soul was crushed when she passed, because I didn't get to talk to her much before she crossed over, and this was kind of like my goodbye to her. And then I Have Known Love is a Silver Apples cover, which Simeon Cox, who was the guy who basically wrote all the songs and sang for Silver Apples, died in September of 2020. And I was already recording that song and thought, oh boy. And it was kind of like a nice encapsulation of the record, and also kind of like all the songs up until this point. I felt like the lyrics were a little naive, which I can be at times. We can all be at times. I think Boy vs. Ghost stuff has a little bit of naivete in it. Just kind of part of the dust that, is ever prevailing in my stuff. But it also had a kind of like very wise self-awareness to it. And I ended the song with a very like post-rock, like something I called like the Appleseed cast meets My Bloody Valentine. Big wall of sound and tape echoes swirling and guitars swaying in and out of tune with the whammy bar. I loved doing the end to that song, and I thought that was a nice encapsulation. Also, just in case anyone is curious, there's a lot of choir and like choral work in Return Trip to the Moon and at the end of I Have Known Love. And that is from one of my favorite movies from the 1930s, taken from the choral work in that song that I slowed down tremendously to make it sound like a choir of celestial ghosts and goblins kind of singing. I had to kind of weave that in as a little personal stamp. And that will lead into the next record, which I'll talk about briefly. The new record is called Waiting for Nothing to End, which is a lyrical nod to the singer-producer Lee Hazelwood, who's one of my favorite human beings. Gave me a lot of confidence to get into writing these songs. The first song is kind of like a funeral march with a little bit of a Moody Blues feel to it. I was named after the singer from the Moody Blues, so I think I can take a little stab at this. This is a less guitar and full band forward record. It's more nylon string guitar, mellotron, electronics. It's heavy in a weight, but it's not heavy in sound. Lyrically, it's more direct. Molded Peaches, which I've already released, is part of these songs. It's one of my newer favorite songs. Mango Ashtray is like the sister track to Molded Peaches, which is like there's like a call and response thing. Mango Ashtray is the answer to that song. And the last song I'm still finishing up the vocals for, but the music is done, which is very difficult to do. I feel like it's like the opposite way you should be doing it. There's like no inspiration coming, so we'll see when this comes out. All the other songs are done. I'm just waiting for to figure out how to sing and what to say in this last song. And then after that, I think I'm going to take a well-deserved break, do some other shit. And yeah, that's been Boy vs. Ghost. And you've been awesome for listening and being a friend and checking out my stupid Instagram stories and posts about the struggles and the wins and failures and all the little quirks and funny stuff. I always try to be honest and open with what I'm doing and showcase, the flaws and the successes. So it's been really awesome, and I probably will return back to Boy vs. Ghost in the near future. I think it's just time to step back after this record. So this record is going to have some guest people performing on it, hopefully. We're trying to work out details right now, and I should have it out sometime in January of 2022. Yes. Take care. Thanks for listening over the years, and we'll get loud soon. Peace.